Alrighty guys, so here we are, 505
for 16 miles.
spur. So the way it works in America is you got the interstates, the I-5, you know, I-90, all the I's, but the threes, so the 505, any number that has three numbers in the US means it's a spur of the interstate highway. So the 505 is basically of the I-5. And I don't know if it works, like, because I've seen like 405, 705, 505. I don't know if there's like, you know, this is the fifth spur of the I-5, which is how it kind of how the road works. So basically, we're on the 505. We've left the I-5, and we're not going to meet the I-5 back until California when we get into Sacramento. And then once we get into Sacramento, we'll be on the I-5 briefly in the valley there, heading towards San Francisco, right? Because I should actually start saying, we're going to San Francisco, right? So we're done with the I-5 for now. We're going to cross through the Cascades. So now it's all going to be state highways. Highway 97, state highway through Oregon, Washington. Takes you up to Oroville on the border with Canada. So Soyuz would be the Canadian town on the other side of the border. So right now we're taking the 505. We're heading into the Toutle River. The Toutle River starts up in Mount St Helens, and it has two forks. That's the North Fork and the South Fork. We're gonna go to the North Fork of the Toutle. Rewind the time machine here. So May 18th, 1980, 8:32 in the morning, Mount St Helens went off, right? So basically what happened, there was a big magnitude 5.1 earthquake. And what happened was, the reason Mount St Helens erupted was it dislodged a bunch of rock off the Mount St Helens edifice. For a couple weeks, months before, scientists from the USGS had been noticing that there was a big bulge accumulating on the north face, on the side of the mountain. It's this huge bulge full of magma, right? Because of the subducting plate underneath the Pacific Ocean. And then when this 5.1 magnitude earthquake hit, it dislodged a whole chunk of rock that had been basically covering this magma chamber. And then once that rock was released, it caused a huge release of pressure. There's this membrane of superheated water that was surrounding it, and then once that went, the magma chamber exploded, and then Mount St. Helens went off and erupted. So this is one of the rivers that was affected. So the Toutle guys, so the North Fork and South Fork, once this went off, it was 8:32 in the morning, May 1980, and people could hear it in Vancouver. 57 people died, guys. There was a huge amount of damage done to logging camps. So Mount St. Helens has some of the best timber assets in the world, guys. Coastal rainforest, big, thick timber, really, really big trees. And when this volcano went off, everything was gone. The trees, the bears, the deer, completely demolished. The logging camp was destroyed. The railway tracks were just everything. And in modern times, in North America, it's the only volcano that's ever caused that to happen. When the volcano went off, it literally blew a hole. It was like 2.5 kilometers by like 3 kilometers wide in the north face of Mount St. Helens. And so obviously Mount St. Helens no longer looks like a perfect volcano, but eventually, given enough time, and it's not in a time period that you or even 5 generations of your children would see, I'm talking like, 6,000-7,000 years from now, it'll rebuild itself, right? The mountain, that's what they're doing, right? Those volcanoes, they're constantly erupting and demolishing themselves, and then new eruptions bring new formations and stuff. That's why, like, out in this area, we have so many cool, like Pacific Northwest, we have so much cool geology, because like stuff's always exploding, and then more stuff falls on it, and then more stuff explodes. That's how it, forms and shapes the land. It's hard enough to see when it's just water. Yeah. Alrighty guys, so here we are. Columbia River Gorge, Highway 14, the Evergreen Highway in Washington State. So we're going to cross the Bridge of the Gods. We're going to go across the river, and I'm pretty sure the way the route's taking us, we're just going to go back over into Washington and go around the other side. Bridge of the Gods, guys. Big landslide that dammed the Columbia River temporarily because of the huge landslide. And then the Columbia had to reroute itself around Bridge of the Gods. But this entire thing is a huge landslide. And so we're going to cross the toll bridge across the Columbia River into Oregon. Then we'll be in Oregon. And Hood River should be coming up. Town of Hood River. Love Hood River. Nice place. Columbia River Gorge in general, guys. It's just phenomenal. It's an amazing place. But it's a toll bridge. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, everybody. So here we are. We live in the Columbia River Gorge now. We are going up the Mount Hood Scenic Byway. So I don't know how much we're going to see because it's the Pacific Northwest and it's winter and it's cloudy and rainy and all of that. But nice shelf road here. So we're going to drive along the Mount Hood Scenic Byway towards Mount Hood Government Camp. Also, cool thing to know at any film buffs out there, The Shining was shot, the outside exterior at least, was shot at the Timberline Lodge up at the top of Mount Hood. We're not going to go up there because it's tons of snow and where it was filmed, you know, that all those iconic scenes outside with all the snow at night, the mountains, Jack in the Maze and all that. That's all Timberline Lodge up in Mount Hood, right? So we're kind of in that region, which gives you, and it has a vibe. It definitely has an interesting vibe for sure. So this is the Scenic Byway, Mount Hood Scenic Byway.
Then turn right onto Button Bridge Road, Mount Hood Highway.
Mount Hood Highway.
Entering Mount Hood Scenic Byway. Got his on.
My baby's gonna put me back on the
Alrighty guys, so here we are. Warm Springs Veteran Memorial Highway. So we have punched through the Cascades. We started our day Evergreen Highway, then we were on the interstate for a bit, then we took the 35, which was really interesting and ended up having a lot of snow and blizzard issues and not fun when you can't see the road and you're losing traction all over the place. I had to switch to 4-wheel drive. Saw somebody spin out right in front of us, which is not a nice thing at all to see. But we made it down the pass, safe and sound. Everything's all good. As you can see now, flat, right? It's getting flatter. So we have now crossed from the Cascades into the rain shadow. So it was like rainy and wet, miserable, and just Pacific Northwest typical weather. So now that we've punched through the Cascades and all that rain that we had inside Mount Hood, like in Mount Hood National Forest and all that, that's all getting trapped in the mountains. And then on this side, it's quite dry and just sun usually, and it's not too bad. So there's a whole bunch of volcanoes that we're going to see, because going south down through southern Oregon, the volcanoes are more on the eastern side of the Cascades than they are in the west. So there'll be the Three Sisters, Mount Thieslin, Mount Jefferson. Jefferson's coming up soon. You might see him. If you see these big, huge, pointy mountains, that's it. We're coming into the Newberry, just outside Bend, heading south. The Newberry Volcanic Monument, all about the Newberry volcano. Largest volcano when you factor in like square area with lava flows and stuff. There's actually a volcano in Bend. Bend is one of the only two cities in America that has a volcano in the actual city. It's not active, obviously, but you can drive up the volcano in Bend. So you have the Cascades on one side, the mountains, the coast mountains, and like the Silcomean Mountains up at the top there. You've got the Sierras on the bottom. You basically, all four directions now around us are mountains, and they call this the Great Basin because these four mountains form a massive basin, and from here no water flows to the ocean. All the water that is here, like Utah, we're getting closer to Utah, the Great Salt Lake. The reason it's a salt lake is because there's no outlets to the ocean here, guys. All the rivers here are stuck. They're stuck in the Great Basin, and the Great Basin is huge. It goes from Washington, Utah, Nevada. Quite a big geological feature. Hey guys, Sasquatch here. So, we are through the Cascades now, on the rain shadow side of the Cascades, where the rain doesn't like to come, because it can't get through the mountains. But, something cool to see, because we're in the lava flows of the Columbia basalts now. Boom! Right at the top of that hill there, you can see basalt columns all the way along that ridge, all the way along, and then all, like, this entire, there's a series of plateaus now, that's been carved by erosion, right? Carved these little valleys and stuff. But you can see, guys, up there, there's basalt columns, columnar basalt. And it's just the way that it cools. So we're on the road. We're just Warm Springs right now. Warm Springs, Madras area. And going down through Bend. We'll be in California later today. Alrighty guys, so I was talking about the basalt before outside. Look all the way along this plateau here. The edge of that plateau, those are basalt columns, similar to what we saw in the Columbia River Gorge. It's just cooling, guys. The basalt cools in a certain way that it forms these columns, 6 8-sided columns, right? But you can see these plateaus, guys, are lava. They came from the Columbia basalts, the Columbia basalt flows. This entire region, all the way up Yakima, that entire length, right? Like these huge lava flows, massive. Like, look, this is all lava, and then everything just grew on top of it, and then over many thousands of years, erosion has carved these valleys. But this is all basalt, guys, all lava that filled this all in, which creates the plateau. We have the Coast Mountains, then you have the Willamette Valley, and then you have the Cascade Mountains, and then you have this. Right, and that's the geographically how it works. But we're out of the rain. We are now in the rain shadow of the Cascades. So, as opposed to being on the west side where it's constantly rainy and wet, on this side, moisture doesn't tend to get over the mountains. It does, but it doesn't tend to. So it's a lot drier. Like, it's 7 degrees here, and there's barely any snow, and it's sunny, right? A lot drier here too, guys. Right, less moisture. So hopefully not as much snow, right? We saw up on Mount Hood, higher elevations, lots of rain, not a good combination, right? It's gonna flatten out even more, right? Because as we head down where Nevada is and stuff, and then over to California, it'll get even flatter, even more desert-like, right? This kind of reminds me of the Okanagan a little bit. And actually, the Okanagan continues down past the border. The only reason it stops is because it's the Canadian border, right? So this is very Okanagan-esque, right? We're just south, but you go to Okanagan now, ooh, cold, man. Kelowna just had snow, so it really shows you when you go down south, and obviously don't need to explain that, how much warmer it is, right? North is not your friend in the wintertime. Alrighty guys, so we're just outside Redmond, Oregon. We're gonna do a little cliff hike. It's a short little one. see what it looks like. I want to see if I can show you guys a bit of the plateau a little more. We're about 20-30 clicks outside of Bend. That's the highway over there, the bridge. That'd be for the train. Let's take a look at this chasm. Apparently it's about 300 feet. Oh wow, look at all the basalt. See the columns there, guys? That's beautiful. You can see the layers, the different colors and the layers. And then the ones that are column shaped, like I was pointing out on the highway, they cooled a specific way, like quite fast. That caused them to become shaped like, octagonal. Oregon Trunk Railway Bridge, constructed in 1911, was the first structure to cross this spectacular gorge. Prior to the construction, the only crossing of the Crooked River in this region was located about a mile upstream, where the canyon's sheer basalt walls began tapering gradually into the surrounding landscape. In the early 1900s, railroad tycoons James Jerome Hill of the Spokane, Portland, and Seattle Railway and Edward Harriman of the Union Pacific began a fierce battle for the rights to open Central Oregon to rail traffic. This battle was one of the greatest in railroad history and played out in courts where the SP and S triumphed. In the field, however, were night raids, dynamite, gunfire, fistfights were common. Neither railroad triumphed. James Jerome Hill, man, he got into it. So, like, his railroads, he got into a lot of stuff. Like, it was the same with the CPR guys, the Midway War. So they were saying they were having fights here, and guys were like full on having brawls and like night raids and stuff. Same thing happened in Canada at Midway, the Midway War with the CPR. So pretty cool, guys. It's cool that also happened down here too. And same guy, James Jerome Hill, Canadian railroad magnate that was cut out by the CPR. So then he came down here and started making railways. See how it's shaped like octagons and hexagons? That's basalt columns. And then you can see the different layers and colors of basalt. Alrighty, guys. So here we are, Bend, Oregon. Bend. This is the big city in this region of Oregon. There's not really much. Klamath Falls down south there. It's not too big, but Bend is kind of it, guys. Big city, 100,000 people. Still big. It's cool. This is where the volcano is. So here we are now on the little road off the highway, 97 highway, state highway, on High Desert Center, guys. Alrighty, guys, so we're in the High Desert Center now. So we're just gonna learn a bit about the High Desert and what's going on with the High Desert. But look, Sasquatch, yay! Migratory, oh yeah, Beringia, land bridge. Trappers and traders, fortunes in soft gold. Lewis and Clark's accounts of rich fur resources entrepreneurs sent expeditions to establish fur companies along the resource-rich Columbia River and its tributaries. These companies were later absorbed by the Hudson's Bay Company. The HBC operated by sending trapping brigades composed of officers, trappers, and their families far into the high desert. 1826. Scots officers, French Canadian Iroquois trappers, and their families. Immigrants embarked on trails west each year, inspired by the desire for land and a new start. After crossing the Rocky Mountains, they entered the high desert. Their trails traversed an arid landscape. Whether they continued on the Oregon Trail, turned off on the California Trail, or chose to cut off like the Applegate Trail, it was a tremendously difficult stage of their 2,000-mile journey. 1853, Rabbit Hole Springs in the Black Rock Desert, northwestern Nevada. The old wagons they would have used, this is all the stuff they would have used to get out west. Several immigrant trails traverse the high desert. One of the most difficult, the Applegate Trail, crossed northwestern Nevada to southern Oregon. It was highly trained map makers of the U.S. Army Corps of topographical engineers who first documented the region's resources. John C. Fremont produced the first accurate map of the Oregon Trail and was the first explorer to define the Great Basin. So that's the Cascade range here. We're like around here, basically. In addition to skilled map makers and a military escort, the surveys included artists and naturalists to prepare images and gather samples. Surveying equipment, the chains. These are chains they would have used to take lengths. Octa. Telescope, compass. You see that's a volcano. These are all volcanoes all throughout here. inside the mine, guys. Hard rock mining. The hoist cage. The man hoist. Ore cart. Riches beneath the high desert. Hard rock or lode mining extracted a wealth of gold and silver from the veins deep within the earth. Miners drilled and blasted mines that could reach over a mile down. The era brought the inventions and technologies of the Industrial Revolution to the high desert. Steam engines, powered hoists, and refining machinery and massive pumps removed millions of gallons of water. $4 a day. Comstock miners were the highest paid industrial workers in America. The shirtless miners reflect the heat in the mines that could exceed 120 degrees. Miners' shirts, such as this, had bib fronts to adjust for the heat at different levels. Their shoes were hobnailed for longer life amidst broken rock. Their lunches were carried in tin pails, and almost all work was done by candlelight, provided by a sticking Tommy wedged into a rock crevice. They called them sticking Johnnies. Placer mining, rivers of gold, over epochs of geologic time, weathering exposed veins of gold and carried it into creeks and rivers. Retrieving gold from the region's waterways was termed placer mining. Skilled and fortunate miners used water to separate the heavier gold from the lighter sand and gravel. The ragged communities of tents and cabins often lasted for as long as the gold, and then disappeared. Placer mining required little beyond a gold pan. Poor man's diggings, guys. That's what they called it. Gold panning. Here's a sluice. Rocker box. Sluice. Picks, shovels, gold pans. You can see the 1 tier, 2 tier, and 3 tier. And then the riffles to try and separate the gold out, catch the gold. And then this rocker box rocks back and forth and doesn't need water as much to function properly. It's used for drier environments. Wells Fargo. Contractor for Chinese labor, railroad work, mines, household help, construction. Inquire within. The high desert or Intermountain West is defined as bounded on the west by the Cascades and Sierra Nevada mountains. It includes the Columbia Plateau to the north and the Great Basin to the south. Portions of the states of Washington, Oregon, California, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Nevada, and Utah, and the Canadian provinces of British Columbia and Alberta are located in the high desert. Topographic and climatic differences across this vast area result in diverse ecosystems, including permanent glaciers, volcanic peaks, lava and limestone caves, tiny salt marshes, expansive forests, and sagebrush uplands, and one of the continent's major rivers. Throughout the high desert, residential and commercial development, grazing, farming, mining, and timber harvesting compete for resources with other special interests, such as recreation, natural and cultural history research, and conservation. So that's the Great Basin, guys. Right here. The old wagon. Stagecoach, construction 1850, 1860. Okay guys, so that was really cool. A little bit about mining in the high desert. See if we can find some stuff about the geology. There's stuff about Sasquatch here. There's all kinds of cool stuff. Alrighty guys, so welcome to Deschutes National Forest. We just passed the Newberry Volcanic Monument. Unfortunately, as you can see, it's wintertime. There's got snow everywhere, it's closed. And the lava has been covered by snow. Although I must say, Americans, these jokes about Canada being cold, it's not that much warmer down here, man. I hate to break it to you guys, but like, yeah, we're a little colder up in Canada, but like, just kind of expecting there to not be snow here. Like, I'm not talking about up in the mountains, guys. Like, that's obviously it's gonna be cold up there. I mean, like down in the valleys and stuff, like, still snow. They've been driving from the Pacific Ocean into the Great Basin Desert. We've crossed over the Cascade Range. We're now driving through Deschutes National Forest south, but we're going to pass Crater Lake, Mountain Mazama, guys. Crater Lake, deepest lake in the United States. The Great Slave Lake is much deeper than Crater Lake. That's in Northwest Territories in Canada. So Canada actually has the deepest lake in North America. Like, yeah. But Crater Lake's pretty cool, guys. Crater Lake exploded. It was Mount Mazama, and then Mount Mazama exploded, like literally, like explosive eruption. Okay, everybody, we at San Francisco, 97 south. We started the day in Washington, Scamonia Lodge. Fantastic lodge, guys. Then we crossed the Columbia River over the Bridge of the Gods, which is a toll bridge, by the way. Then we drove up onto Mount Hood through Mount Hood National Forest, which was eventful. Big blizzard, but we made it out. Then we came out, we cleared the Cascades, came out onto the plateau, and we've now been driving through the Great Basin the whole day. The border with California, guys, we've driven the whole of Oregon today. We drove the entire state today, so we're literally like a couple of clicks out from the Oregon border. It's California, and then we're in California. South Oregon right now. Alrighty, guys, so we're like less than a mile now. Welcome to California, everyone. Here we go. Alrighty, guys, so that's it for me tonight. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell icon to get notified. And Sasquatch Prospector out.